Hey guys, it's Cyrus of Chaos. I'm here with Hisham Abdelaziz, someone I've known and been directing with for, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years in New Jersey or something. He just got his FIE license and is one of the top US foil refs. So today I'm going to be asking him some of the questions that you guys asked me to ask him from Instagram. So, hi Hisham.
Hey guys, how's it going?
So we're gonna dive right in. So, how did you start refing, and why did you start doing that instead of continuing your fencing career?
Okay, I was 14 years old. I started reffing very young. My dad kind of pushed me into it. He was like, "You're always going to these fencing tournaments. You might as well make some money." And I'm like, "Okay, that makes sense." I started reffing, and then at about 16 years old, I was reffing and fencing for 2 years. At 16 years old, I quit fencing, and then I just started reffing as much as possible because honestly, I was lazy. I didn't want to go to practice, so I just I didn't feel like putting in all the time to fence. But reffing, I could still be around the sport without
Yeah,
actually fencing. So, and then I fell in love with reffing. It was,
nice.
yeah,
So
I really like it.
yeah, so it's hard coming up as a ref from that age, especially if you don't have the credibility of being a top fencer. So
Yeah,
how did you manage to like make it through all of the nonsense? Like
it was
just
hard.
you like yeah, just talk about that.
Uh, I mean, it was really difficult growing up because up until I'd say like 23, 24, everybody just always saw me as that little kid. I was the short, pudgy kid with the oversized suit. I was always like the image was ingrained in everyone's mind. I was
I've
the little
actually
kid.
I've seen a picture of you testing a weight with your
Yes,
cheek.
yeah, chubby cheeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that picture was stuck in everyone's mind for a long time. So it was really hard to bounce back from that. But honestly, the only way was just if I take myself seriously, then people eventually start taking me seriously. So it's
Mhm.
just I got to put on a serious face, and I have to do the job. I have to show everyone that I can do the job just as well as someone twice my age.
Yeah.
And that's really all I could do. It was difficult though. I'm not gonna lie, but
Yeah, of
we
course.
got
And I
through it.
think I think the fact that there is so much adversity makes getting to that point at the end a lot more satisfying, right?
Yes, yes. It's a good feeling of accomplishment, good sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, rather than someone like me who has like a lot of credit from my fencing that just kind of carried over. So I didn't really have to go through that as much, fortunately for me. But
Yeah.
yeah. So how do you get over tournament nerves before you referee? Do you have them?
Uh, I will say they still happen at every level, no matter what, no matter how good of a referee you are. When you're standing on the final strip and you're about to referee some top level fencers, you will get nerves no matter how good you are. But for me, what I like to do is I imagine a bubble, and that bubble is just me and the two fencers, and that's it. Nobody else matters at all. I don't care if there's hundreds of people behind me, and I don't turn around. When I'm walking back to the spot where I start the bout, I do not look at the crowd because if I look at the crowd, I'm gonna I'm gonna lose it. So I don't
That's
look at the crowd. I just keep a straight face, and it's just me and my two fencers. That's it. Nobody else matters at all. If a
who's
coach
the
says
best?
something, of course, I'll give them the respect and respond. But what I'm saying is, I zone out, and it's just me and the two fencers. That's all that matters.
Yeah. And I
And
imagine once
that's
you actually get into the bout, it's pretty easy to just like kind of get in the flow and just forget about everybody else.
yes, yeah, yeah. I'd say it takes one, two touches max, and depending on the size of the crowd, of course. But like one or two touches, and that's it. I'm zoned in. I've done it a million times. It's just hand signals and making calls. Same
Yeah.
stuff.
I actually had this funny experience as a fencer. I was in the top 8 of national championships, and my bout was the one I was fencing ended up being 15-13, and it was a lot closer than the other 3 bouts, which were all just like slaughters. So
Hmm.
everyone from all the bouts came over and was watching the bout that I was fencing, and but I didn't even notice. I was like so in the zone that
You're in the zone, yeah.
when I lost the bout, I shook hands with my opponent and I looked around and I remember thinking, when did all these people get here? It's like for me, it's kind of like that once I start refereeing. Like that's just
Yeah, you're in the zone. No one else matters. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
that's just the entirety of my focus. So
Hmm.
yeah, but getting to that point is sometimes like You have
Yeah,
to.
it's difficult because there's times where, the thought will pop in your head. You'll think about the crowd, but you can't do that. That's the worst thing you can do. As long as you
Right.
ignore the crowd, it's easy to focus.
Yes. So, what are some of the things you do before a tournament to get ready? Like, do you watch some videos to make sure that the trends that you're seeing are things that you're interpreting well? Anything
Well,
like
I'm actively, I mean, of course not now, but generally I'm actively refereeing every weekend or almost every weekend to where I'm current with the fencing world. I know what's going on. I know how things are being called, and just generally I'm up to date. So I don't really watch video. I do watch videos for fun. If there's a Grand Prix going on or some sort of tournament, I will watch it just because I love the sport. But
Mhm.
in terms of before a tournament, the most I'll do, if it's like some high level fencing, I will watch the fencers warm up, and that kind of like warms my eyes up, as they call it in the ref world. Is
Yep.
like you just acclimate your eyes to seeing actions because you haven't been watching fencing all week, so you get there on Saturday morning and you're just preparing your eyes to make calls, and that's all it is. So I'll just watch a couple of actions, make the call in my head, and that's really all I can do.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just like with fencing. You want to warm up your refereeing, just like you.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be,
So
warm. Yeah.
yeah, it's not that different.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a call that I got asked about a couple times in the sticker, which would be
Okay.
how do you give how do you what's the reason behind giving a strong parry the priority over a weaker beat?
Well, the thing that I look for in terms of the strength, I won't like if they happen at the same time, the strength is of no concern. It's if they happen at the same exact time, sure, mine is stronger. It's irrelevant. They happen at the same time, beat versus parry, it's always going to be a beat attack. The only time I will call it a parry post if I see the beat happen and the blade pushes, but then the person parrying pushes back, and
Yep.
like I deflect your blade, like you were coming here and I deflected you all the way over there, and then I riposte. But it's
So
one sound, sure, but like
yes,
that's the only time I'll call it as a parry post if I distinctly see the person just push the blade out of the way.
so I was just gonna say something I hear a lot, and I've made that call a few times before. The person is, but there's only one contact.
There's only one, yeah, and then you look crazy trying to explain it.
No, I always say, yeah, there was one contact, but there were two engagements. Like you did this, and then he did this.
Yes, exactly.
Just because your blades didn't separate doesn't mean that
Yeah.
the second part of that didn't happen.
Because if you're searching in 4 and then I push you all the way to 6, then you never, like your blade contact didn't really happen because I took over.
Yes, exactly.
So
The one other thing I
yeah.
say, and I don't know how often this happens in foil compared to saber, where it happens a lot.
Mhm.
Someone will be going like on the attack will go for a beat like this or something, and someone on defense will go for it like that. And
Yeah.
a lot of the time when you call the defensive action, you just say parry repost or beat attack from left or something. They'll say, well, what about mine?
Well, why? Yeah.
And the answer is like, I didn't even see you were trying to do it compared to like the huge motion that he was making. So
Yes.
if you do find as a fencer that you're in the situation where you're making a beat attack, but it's being called like a strong parry against you, it could be that the action you're trying to make is so small that it's kind of getting lost in the large action that your opponent is doing.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah, and that happens. It's sometimes the blade actions are so small that you can't pick up every minute detail.
yes,
And I
exactly.
think this leads into another question that was on the stickers, is that how do you see those blade contact, or any advice for fencers or referees? And what I tend to look at, because if I'm looking at the blades themselves, blades are very small and very thin and very quick. So when
Right.
they're
It's
moving
not
at
gonna
high
happen.
speeds, it's impossible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So every referee advises different things. Some will say watch the feet, some will say watch the hands. From my experience personally, I prefer to watch the forearms, because in foil, it's you're like the majority of parries, you'll rarely see someone parrying with their wrist. Their
Mm-hmm.
entire forearm is going to move with the parry. Whereas in
Yeah.
saber, you could see these parries. In foil, it doesn't happen. In foil, every parry comes from the arm. So
Mm.
I watch the forearms, because then when I see him make a fore action and then I hear that blade contact, I know that he went for it. Whereas if his blade isn't moving and a blade contact happens, he obviously didn't go for it.
Yeah.
So that's why I keep in, like, I make a mental note of the forearms while I'm watching, because that'll give me a hint of who's going for the blade at what
Yeah.
time. Yeah,
That makes sense. And the forearm is much like makes a much more visible motion than just
exactly. It's much easier to see a forearm than it is to see that tiny little blade, you know?
Yeah, totally. And
Yeah.
my personal strategy for that is to just to watch the space between them and kind of
Yes.
your peripherals to see those things.
Yes, exactly. That's what I do. I watch the empty space between them and then peripherally make notes of the forearms and the feet and
Yeah.
pretty much everything.
A lot of low level referees tend to make the mistake of watching only one fencer, and when you do that, it can like overemphasize details of what that person is doing while de-emphasizing details of what the other person is doing.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And you need to
Like
look at everything holistically.
some people tend to only watch the fencer who has priority, which is like a fatal mistake, because if the person who has priority pauses for a second and that other person starts an attack, you're not going to give it to the person who started. You're going to give it to the person who was marching forward because you were only watching them. But you have to keep an eye out for both fencers, you know.
Yeah, totally. That's a good example.
It's crucial, yeah.
So if the fencer and the referee don't agree and the fencer asks for a video, what is the process of that? So
I'm glad you asked this.
I ask you for a video.
Yeah.
Tell me what happens now.
So not a lot of people know this, so I'm glad you're asking this. So the ultimate call is with the head referee. So the main referee standing out front refereeing the bout, he has the final say. He can make his call even if he disagrees with the video ref. That being said, the video ref's job is to give his opinion, first of all, live. So when I'm sitting on video and someone comes back, my first thing is live, I saw Harrier post, but now let's watch it together. So you want the video ref's opinion live, because if you're just going to decipher a video and slow it down and break down every little hand movement and foot movement, you're going to see things that no one would see live. You're going to start inventing scenarios. So the first thing you do is you get the video ref's opinion live, and then you guys watch it together full speed. If it's a very difficult action to see full speed, you slow it down. I prefer no slower than 70%.
Yeah.
The only time I'll slow it down less than 70% is if we're trying to see stepping off the strip or covering or something like that.
Something
but other than that,
something very objective and quantifiable.
Yes.
Did
yes, exactly.
Something
yeah.
Before my foot came down off.
Yes, exactly.
Something like that.
Or something where you need to measure like millimeters. Was the foot on or off, or something like that. But for priority, you don't want to slow it down more than 70, because then, at full speed, you'll see his arm come out. But then in slow motion, you'll see the arm hesitate. And in that hesitation, his foot twitched. So that means that that's not fencing.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's
so
breaking it down to being like a little too specific. Again, it's
so then usually like with the sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's about the holistic action, not finite.
Yes,
detail.
not exactly. Not every single movement of the finger. No. So the video ref is there to give his opinion, and the video ref should always give his opinion. Now, the thing is when you're a high level referee and the video ref is also a high level referee, when you disagree on a call, the good thing to do is abstain. You don't want to, if you're 100%, for example, the only time I will say disagree with your video ref is if I heard 2 blade contacts, I go back to the video ref and he says I heard 1. Now his call is based off a different piece of information than what you have. So if your gut instinct says there was 2 blade contacts, you're 100% sure, then you base your call off of that. But if you both heard 2 blade contacts, but you see different things, sure, you can abstain. But at the end of the day, it is the referee's call, and they can trust their gut instinct. The video ref is only there to give an opinion.
In that situation that you just mentioned, it's important that you mention the sounds, because in the video, I think in every system that we have for video replay, there is no sound.
There's no sound.
So that information is gone forever after the live viewing.
Yeah, and that's why the live opinion is so important, because you have to, the video ref, some people think the video ref just sits there on their phone until, some action happens. No, the video ref needs to watch the bout just as intently as the ref, because they need to see what's happening so that they can give their opinion. Because live opinion matters more than any video opinion.
And in Saber as well, when I'm on video, I try to look for things like foot crossing, which the main referee might not be as attentive for because they're trying to put all their focus on the actual action of the bout.
Yes, exactly. And that's a good thing. That's a good tool to use the video. It's those things you don't really focus on, like in foil covering, like sure, I'll watch for it, but when I'm trying to focus on some intense actions, it's hard to see if there's a covering that I missed when the guy was turning, you know, so the video is always there to help.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
referees should never have an ego where it's embarrassing to change your call. It's not embarrassing to change your call. I'm glad when I change my call, because it's like, you're making a change to benefit the fencers. You set your ego aside, because you're not there for yourself. You're not there for your glory. You're there to make the fencers have the correct call. You're there for the benefit of the fencers. That's actually why I didn't mention that when you asked the question earlier, but this is why I got into refereeing so heavily. As a fencer, I would get screwed over so many times by refs that once I started reffing, I realized that like I wanna help fencers. Like my goal as a ref is when I step up to the strip, the fencers can be like, oh God, he knows what he's doing. Now I can focus on my fence, you know, because when the ref doesn't know what they're doing, you know, like 30% of your focus is on trying to cater your actions to the ref, and the rest of it is on trying to beat the fencer. Whereas you don't want something else to stress about. You want 100% of your focus to be on the fencer in front of you. You don't want to have to stress about this ref, whether he knows what he's doing or not, you know? So
Exactly.
I try to create a calm atmosphere where it's like, don't worry, I'll take care of the calls. You guys take care of the fence, you know? And
Yeah.
that's really why I love refereeing, because it's like, I feel like I get to help, you know?
Honestly, me too.
Yeah. We're
So,
big fencing nerds, and there's nothing wrong with it.
so one thing that you mentioned before, which I liked a lot, is that you said that like there's no shame in being in like changing your call and being wrong
Yeah.
time, because the whole point is that you want to be right at the end.
Yes, exactly. All that matters is the outcome, the
And so
final call. Yeah.
if the only thing you care about is being right at first, then in the end you're going to be wrong.
You're
Because
gonna be wrong anyway. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
You're
so
worried about
just
your ego. Well, what about after the bout when they look at the video and realize you were wrong? You know,
yeah,
what about your ego then? You know.
exactly. And I mean, it's like it's very refereeing is very difficult. I don't think a lot of people understand.
Yeah.
You're going through hundreds of actions a day that happen with splits of like hundreds of
Split
seconds.
second. Yeah. And you
And
have an instant to make a decision. You know.
yes, and if you don't, like it's the whole
You
thing
get eaten alive.
in
Yeah.
control.
It just all falls
So
apart. Yeah.
yeah, if you miss something quickly, it's okay. That happens. It's part of human nature.
Yes. Exactly.
Thankfully, you have a video behind you that you can look at to change it when that does happen.
Yeah, and that's why the video is such a great tool. Like I feel relieved when I'm reffing and there's video, because it's
Of
like even
course.
if I make a mistake, I have a safety net, you know?
Mhm.
Whereas in a pool, there's no video. I make a mistake. It is what it is, you know. I'm
That's
sorry.
yeah.
I'll focus on the next touch, you know?
I want to
And
get I want to get back to that in 1 second. I just want to add one
okay.
thing before we go on. I
Hmm.
A lot of young referees that I work with at regional tournaments when there's video who make a call and then they come back to the video not with a fresh set of eyes to like reevaluate what happened, but they'll look at it as though like, yeah, I saw a beat the first time and there it is again the second time.
Yeah. They're looking to justify their initial call. Yeah.
Exactly. You don't want to go to video with a mindset of
With
how
a closed mind. Yep. I agree.
you want to look at
Yeah.
the video again. And
Yes. Open-minded. Like you're watching a fresh call, because you
and
could have made a mistake. Yeah.
and of course you want to keep some information like what you said with like one beat or two that you
Like I heard too. Yeah.
but
Yes.
you need to make sure that you're looking at that like how do I evaluate this call instead of how can I justify the call that I just made.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Because that's a lot of people think that the video is, they come back and try to justify their call, and when the video ref disagrees with them, they take it personally. Like
Mhm.
I'm glad when a video ref disagrees with me, because now I'm getting someone's opinion, you know. Like I value input, I value people's input. But when somebody just agrees with me because they don't want to disagree, or they're scared that, you know, I'm going to take it the wrong way, you know, then it's like you're not really helping. Your
Right.
job as a video ref is to give your opinion, to help the ref, you know.
Yes,
It's no
completely.
help if you disagree and say nothing, you know.
So
So, yeah,
sometimes
but I agree with you.
unfortunately,
Open mind. Always go
yes,
back to the video with an open mind. I agree
exactly.
100%.
Yeah. That's an important point too.
It's
So
very important.
so you said a second ago sometimes you make a mistake and there's no video.
Yeah. Hmm.
How do you move on from that mentally?
Okay, this is a good question. So the worst thing you can do as a referee for when you make a mistake is to feel guilty.
Panic.
Yes, you can't. When you feel a sense of guilt, then you feel like you owe something to that fencer. Now the next touch, when it's actually his point, you feel bad, so you give it to the guy that you screwed over the previous point.
Yes.
Now
In
it
saber
just
fencing, In saber fencing,
Snowballs.
we call that a makeup touch, and
Yeah, exactly. It's a horrible idea because
yeah,
everyone makes mistakes, and you just, as a referee, as a fencer, as a coach, as a human, you have to accept that it's okay to make a mistake. All you can do is work harder for next time. Just like fencing, just like anything, when you make a mistake, you learn from your mistake. Why did I call it his? Well, it's because maybe he hesitated, or maybe because I was only focusing on one fencer. Okay, next time I'll focus on both fences. You know, you try to evaluate yourself and improve yourself. That's all you can do. When you make a mistake, don't feel guilty. All you do, when I make a mistake, and I make mistakes just like anyone, is when I make a mistake, I think, okay, work harder. That's it. Focus more. That's all I can do, you know, because mistakes are common, but you don't want to, once you panic from a mistake, you're just going to make more mistakes, you know?
yeah. In my head, when I know that I've made a bad call shortly after, and you usually, because like you and I were saying a second ago, it happens so quickly, you just have to give your opinion, and
Yeah.
experience is going to mean that most of the time we're right, but sometimes we're not. And usually when you make a mistake, you know it immediately.
Yes. There's times where I put my hand out and I'm like, oh my God, why did I do
Yeah,
that?
they're right. It can happen that quickly. And sometimes if it
Yeah.
happens that quickly, you can be like attack.
Yeah, you can attack. No, yeah, you
Oh,
can just
yeah.
invent an action to recover. Yeah.
Yeah. But once you've made the call, that's it. You can't change your mind.
It
So
is what it is.
in my
Yeah.
head, when that happens, I'm just like, oh, well, that sucks. On guard.
And I
And
actually want to brush up on that because people ask me about that all the time. Is like sometimes I'll put my hand out and it's like too, like I know it's attack from the left, but I put my hand out to the right. I have to stick with it. Attack right. And people ask me why do you make your call so quickly? Well, as a ref, you have to make your call quickly because if you don't, then coaches will see that hesitation and they'll just eat you up. You can't hesitate because if you know what you're talking about, there's nothing to think about. If you know the person whose attack it is, there's nothing to think about. But mistakes happen. Yes, sure, you can make a mistake if you act too quickly. So you need to know what call you're going to make. But people ask, why are you so quick to make a call? Because hesitation it just opens a Pandora's box of just coaches jumping in and being like, what are you thinking about? It's a clear call. You're an idiot, you know?
and the like
So
the fencers start yelling too. Just like the
yeah,
less variables you have at that point, the better.
yeah, exactly. I like to make my call before I hear any coach's input because I don't want that input to affect my call. So I make my call, my gut instinct, and then I'll hear the input, you know?
Would you ever tell the fencers in a bout that you were wrong?
No, not during the bout.
But
And
afterwards?
I know some people would prefer you do it during the bout. Some fencers would prefer you do it during the bout, but here's why I don't. Because during the bout, it'll throw off the entire mood. It'll throw off the entire mental game of that bout. If you admit to a mistake, let's say during the 1 minute break, I come in, I admit to a mistake. Now the next time, like they think it's their attack and prep, or let's say I screwed them over, I didn't call attack and prep. Now next time, you're gonna hear a snotty comment. You're gonna hear a remark. They're gonna do the action again, and now the other person's gonna think that you're favoring them. It's just it leads to so many more things. You know, it's when you make a mistake, the best thing you can do is forget it, move on. It's in the past, focus on the next one. That's it.
Yeah.
And you owe nothing to that fencer. Your job, the only thing I owe to the fencers is to do my best. And that's all I can do. If I make a mistake, I'm sorry. I will do my best next touch. And that's all
Yeah.
I can do. That's all I owe to the fencers. But I don't, because I made a bad call, I don't owe them a touch. If I start thinking like that, then it's just going to get out of hand, you know? And
Exactly.
after the bout, I will always, after the bout, if I make a mistake, I will always admit to it. Although referee advisors have always told me not to, I personally just, I feel like there's no sense in BS, you know?
I agree.
Yes, I made a mistake. I'm human. I make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, and I will admit to it. You know, I'm sorry. I did make that mistake, and I'll work harder. And everyone's always good about it. There's always good sportsmanship. There's always respect. You know, it's like, okay, no problem. That's it. You
Yeah.
move on. You know.
So my personal response to that is at the end, I'll always say like, that was a bad call and I apologize.
Yeah.
And I tell
Yeah.
them like, unfortunately, referees make mistakes. We're only human. All I can do is provide you with a very consistent set of calls with which you can make your decisions. And I hope that when I do make a mistake, it's not at 14-14. So
Yeah, exactly. That's every referee's hope.
yeah, like that's the best you can do. So
Yeah.
so here's an interesting situation. I think I know the answer to this question, but it's kind of weird. If you call simultaneous and both fencers immediately are like, no, that was mine, and both ask for a video.
Both ask for video.
You go back and you both decide it's simultaneous. You come back. Whose video did you use?
Personally, I wouldn't count anyone's video. I would be like, you know what? I'm going back to check myself. Because the only time I would count a video is if one person clearly asked, but like if we're saying they both asked for video. On a simo, I'm not going to take your video unless like one person clearly asks, sure. Then you asked for it. I stick with simo, you lose your video. But like when you're both asking for it and everyone thinks it's theirs and I think it's simo and they think, there's no need to take a video. You know, it's like, and then if someone complains like, oh, why don't you take his video? I chose to come back. You know,
Yeah.
That's personally how I would handle the situation. But the correct answer is whoever made the video symbol first. If they both made it at the same time, I'm not taking anyone's videos. Sorry.
Interesting. Yeah, my gut response to that is that they both lose their video.
Oh no, I can't do that. I don't even think you can take both videos in one. That's horrible.
Yeah. I don't actually know what the right answer is. It would be interesting for any referees who see this and are listening to this specific conversation to leave a comment in the video about what you would do in that situation, because I don't think there's a clear rule or convention.
I mean, the official response, the official rule is whoever asks for video is the one that loses the video. So whoever was first is the one who should lose the video. But if they're both at the same exact time, what do I do then? I'll be like, okay, 3, 2, 1, go, call video. Whoever's first. You know,
That's
so
funny.
it is whoever's first. But if they both do it, I'm not gonna take anyone's video.
Yeah.
Not on a simo, you know.
Yeah. Makes sense. So, what are some things that fencers do that annoy you as a referee?
Honestly, I don't think anything annoys me as a referee, but that's only because as a fencer, I was a really mean guy to referees because it was before I actually started refereeing. So I didn't get now when I show up and fence occasionally, I'm not mean to referees because I know what it's like to be in their shoes. So there's no need to be mean. But as a young fencer, I had an attitude. So honestly, I will say that the only thing that really annoys me is like blatant disrespect. You know, like if they're complaining about a call and they're like, oh my God, are you serious? Like, are your eyes even open, dude? You know, like something like that. It's just like, come on, really? Like let's be respectful here. That's the only thing that'll like bother me. But even if it bothers me, I'm not gonna let it affect my control of the strip. You know, I'm not gonna be mean back to them. I'm still always gonna keep a professional face. It might bother me, but I'm just gonna be like, sir, please put your mask on, man, get back on the strip, whatever it is, you know. And that's it.
Yeah. So there's actually two things that fencers do that really annoy me.
Okay.
Is you ask me for a video, no problem. I'm over there discussing the call, and the fencer continues to tell me what happened during the point.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, obviously, as a smart person and an experienced referee, I understand why you called for that. You just told me to look for it. You don't need to tell me 5 more times while I'm looking at the video. Like just.
And then you'll have the coach come in behind you, and they're just like, yeah, look, fair both.
Yeah. You go back to your box and you stop talking. Let me do my job.
Let me think. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. You're making it harder.
Yeah, you're not helping. Yeah, that's something people don't realize.
And the other thing, which does happen sometimes, and actually happened the last time I refereed somebody, is when a fencer tries to get an action and gets it successfully and then complains when you call it against them. So I was reffing a meet where this girl on defense, the first 2 touches, gets prise de fer going backwards and hits. She celebrates, I give her the touch. But the next 2 touches, the other girl going backwards takes prise de fer.
Oh, does the same thing.
And
the first like, why are you calling it for her?
The first person is like flipping out. And it's like, dude, you just did that.
You did the same action, yeah.
Why would you not expect me to give it when she does it? And then it happens again, and the person is going crazy. And it's like, I don't know. It's not my job to help you win the bout. It's my job to call things in a very consistent way. And if I'm giving it to you, you have to assume I'm going to give it to her. So those are my 2.
Yeah. Speaking of what you just said, like if any fencers are watching this, a piece of advice, don't ask the ref to coach you. A lot of times the fencer will ask me questions that should not be directed at me. They should be directed at her coach. Like they'll be like, why did you give her the attack? Was her arm out first? Like I'm willing to give a detail about why I'm calling it a certain way. 1, maybe 2 details, but I will not break down for you what you should do next touch because now I'm coaching you. You know, it's like they'll attack and they'll be like, Why is it her attack? She started. Was her arm out first? Sure. But then the next time, because any extra information I give, they're going to use. Now they know that now they know that they need to get their arm out first. So now I essentially just implied to them, get your arm out. I feel biased when I answer those questions, like I feel like I'm giving the person an edge, like I will only give the detail that is relevant to why I'm calling it. They started the advance first. Her arm came out first, whatever it is. But because then when fencers start asking me, so what if I had pulled? What if she had pulled? I'm not answering these questions, because those questions are me coaching you. I don't like it. It's not like something that bothers me, but it's something that I'm adamant about and I will not do. If you ask me a question that is basically what you're trying to get out of me is what should you do next touch, I won't answer it. I will tell you the way I'm calling it so that you can adjust. That I'm for. If I'm saying, if they're asking me, why was it her attack? She started, whereas you were waiting. Now, next touch, as soon as I say fence, they're both going. I'm going to call it Simo. I see your adjustment. Okay, that's different. But like when you're asking me, what if she had bent her arm? What if I had extended? What if when she paused on the step, I'm not answering these hypotheticals. That's for your coach, not for me. That's the only thing that I would say is like some advice to the fencers is like, don't ask the ref what you should do. That's not the ref's job. The ref's job is to explain what he saw, not what you should do in the future.
Makes sense.
That's my opinion on it.
So going from that, what is a good way for a fencer to argue a touch or ask a question? Like what would be the best way for either of those things to happen?
Honestly, with me, I don't like to let my ego get in the way. I'm not like you don't have to speak to me like an authority figure. If a fencer speaks to me as a peer, I will respect you as a peer. We are equal. I'm no higher than you. Sure, I may be in control of the strip, but I'm not better than you in anything. So at the end of the day, I will treat you like an equal. So all I ask for is the person on the strip to just speak, just have a conversation, just ask a question, polite, respectful, just like how you would speak to a friend. That's all I have. That's really, there's no specific way to speak to a ref because everyone is different, but just, I promise if you are polite and you speak to that ref as if you would speak to any other person, the ref will answer your question. But if you come in degrading and if you come in like, are you serious? Are you,
what the hell was that?
Why would you, what the hell was like, those approaches will not get you anywhere. Some refs could get pissed off by that. I know refs who will get angry, which is very bad to do as a ref. They'll get angry and then upcoming touches, they'll screw that fencer over because they pissed them off. That's such a bad thing to do. Don't abuse your power. I hate refs who do that, but it happens. It's unfortunate. But I would say advice for fencers, if you're polite, it will never go wrong. And if that ref refuses to answer your question when you're polite, call bout committee. There's no reason he shouldn't answer your question,
Yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of questions, or people asked a lot of questions about attack and preparation and foil. So can you talk about when you would call that? I know in general these days the trend is to call the march an attack, counterattack, but what is a situation in which you would call attack and preparation?
So personally, and I can name a handful of reps in the United States that call it.
I don't mean at the ready fence. I mean like once right.
Yeah. During like a march. Yeah.
Yes.
So there's only a handful of reps that would call it attack and prep, and I feel like it is a American convention versus international convention, because internationally attack and prep still exists, happens all the time. And someone will be marching, the other person will take 2 steps back, advance lunge, and the person on the march sees them advance lunge and react. Well, the attack is initiating the offensive action. So now if I'm marching, I'm walking forward like this, and you advance lunge into me, and then I extend, I'm reacting to you. So that's an attack and prep. But in America, when refs see someone marching, they will always give the attack, no matter how slow, no matter how inconsistent. There's nothing threatening about someone taking slow steps forward with their hand back here. Where's the threat? You have to threaten the target. Attack and prep, when it's called in America, some people are against it, some people are for it. Regardless, it doesn't affect the way I call it. I call it the way it should be called, the way it is still called internationally. Attack and prep still very much exists, but like I said, only a handful of reps in the United States will call it consistently, and then that throws people off because now you have a lot of reps calling the march the attack, and now you have a handful of reps, which I want to say are some of the high level referees, will call attack and prep because they'll see that this sure, I will say that the march, if the other person's going backwards, then yes, this is an attack because I'm being more offensive than you. You're moving back, I'm moving forward. Okay, I agree, that's an attack. But when the person moving backward has something different to offer, he's no longer moving backward. Now he's doing an advanced lunge. That's an attack.
Mm-hmm.
It's an attack. You can call it attack and prep. I would just say attack. Yes, it is an attack and prep. But just to avoid confusion and just to avoid people losing their minds, what do you mean attack and prep? I'm just going to say attack. You're waiting. Sure, you're waiting while you're walking forward, but you're still waiting. He's initiating. You're reacting. Attack, counter attack.
So the way that I understand this action from watching a lot of high level stuff is that there are two schools of thought on how attack is called.
Yeah.
One is that if you're moving forward, like you said, even if you're back here,
no matter what, no matter
what,
slow,
as long as you're maintaining forward motion, that's attack, counterattack. And the second school of thought is the person who accelerates first with an advanced lunge or whatever, that person is attacking. And when I coach people, I tell them it doesn't matter which one is happening, but once you know which one that is, don't be stubborn. Don't try to convince the person to change their mind. Just work in that system. So, like,
as long as you're consistent, people can adjust.
Exactly.
From the first two touches, that fencer will know how this ref calls prep.
Yes.
They'll know for sure. So just stick with the way you call it. Now, in terms of people becoming unified, that's something that's out of my hand. I wish everyone would call it the same, but it's not. It's currently not happening. That's something for referee development. I don't know anything about that. I don't have any ideas on how we could become unified, but at the end of the day, as long as you are consistent as a ref, fencers love that. You might not call it the way the fencer wants, but if you're consistent, fencers can adjust. So fencers love consistency. Yeah.
Yep, totally. And even if you don't agree, at least at that point, the other person can adapt to what you're calling. So my advice in that situation to fencers is just to not be stubborn. Like, you're not going to teach Hisham a lesson about how to referee. Just do what he wants. And I mean, even if you don't agree with it.
This is, and I have to be consistent because I can't change my calls for every fencer, and that fencers would lose their minds if that was the case,
Yes,
and
of course.
Nobody wants the pliable ref. Nobody wants the ref who, once you scream, they give it to you, because then it's just random, then it's just a coin toss. You don't want a coin toss. You want someone who's consistent. This is how he calls it. We know how he calls it before he even hooks up. So, that's how it should. Now, it's an unfortunate byproduct of the sport where every fencer has to cater to each ref. And like I said, hopefully becoming unified. And I feel like internationally, people are more unified, more in agreement on calls. And you'll still have two FIE referees could disagree on an attack and prep call, and that is absolutely normal. Yeah. And that's kind of what we love about this sport is, like, there's a lot of open to interpretation. So it's always changing. But at the end of the day, as long as you are consistent as a ref, you're doing your job.
So the way I think about that is there's a variance between each person's window, and at the high level, those variances are much smaller than they are.
Yeah, people tend to agree more at like higher levels internationally. You'll see attack and prep called in pools constantly every bout. It's normal. It's a normal thing. Whereas I feel like attack and prep being called in America is very rare. I don't even say attack and prep because I feel like I'm gonna get attacked. So I just say attack, counter attack. That's it. Even though I know it's attack and prep.
For some reason, people have this it's like they get triggered by the word preparation.
Yeah. I've had people tell me attack and prep doesn't exist anymore. I'm like, okay, well, when they delete it from the rule book, then it no longer exists. But for the meantime, it still exists.
So you mentioned about how the interpretation of right-of-way changes over time, and that's something that we experience in as well. So is there anything that you see happening now that might be an indication of like an upcoming trend or a change or something? Obviously, it's hard to quarantine just happened.
But I mean, in terms of upcoming trends, no, I haven't seen the newest development. Like, I'd say the two biggest developments in my lifetime in foil, like the way things are being called, is the march becoming an attack. Because when I was younger in fencing, the march was non-existent. Nobody marched down the strip because then you're just going to get lunged into and it's not your attack. Now the march is more prominent. That's one thing. And then the other thing is, growing up, there was no such thing as point and line off target. And we've now agreed as a fencing community that point and line off target makes sense and it's a logical call to make, and I'm on board with it. So those are the only two big changes. But in terms of anticipating upcoming changes, I don't really see anything. I think foil is perfect the way it is as of now. I don't think we should remove off targets. I don't think we should bring back cards for turning shoulders. I think everything is perfect as is. I don't think any cards anything needs to change in the sport.
It's good.
I like the changes, and I like where it's reached, and I'm very happy with the sport we have today.
Yeah, I agree. I am too.
So, yeah.
Do you have a particularly memorable bout? Was there like a favorite bout that you've had?
My favorite bout to ref, I would say, was Miles Chamley Watson and Adam Matthews, just because they're both giants, and there were just these beautiful actions being set up, and they had to set them up from such big distance. So there was a lot of like mental play back and forth, trying to break through each other's defenses, because you can't just use your length on somebody who's just as tall. So the tactics were different, and it was the biggest crowd of a bout that I've ever ref. So that was really cool too. And
What
it was a
event
great
was that
job.
from? Do you remember when that was?
I don't remember when. I would say 2-3 years ago. I know it wasn't like a final. It was like a top 16, I believe. Also, I had Kelly Kaler as my video, and it was amazing. It was a great learning experience, and I felt like very confident knowing I have such a good ref behind me, and that any mistake I made will be caught. So it was like I got to ref like I was at peace with myself. It's like I have nothing to worry about. I'm just gonna make my calls and enjoy some good fencing. So I'd say that was probably my most favorite bout.
That's good.
Yeah.
So on to some like more funny stories. Have you ever gotten hit by a weapon during a bout?
Yes, many times. Front of the head, back of the head, my hand, my leg, my everything. This is only at local tournaments though.
Yes.
Like local tournaments, yeah, the tight strips.
Exactly. It's something that's more likely to happen when there's no space. There's actually a funny picture of me where I had to ref at some New Jersey club. I'm drawing a blank as to which one it was, but the strip is like right against the wall, and there's literally like 2 feet between the strip and the wall, and
I
wasn't going to stand there. So
I can name some clubs, but I don't want to make enemies. But yes, we've all been through it.
So there's this picture of me, like where the wall ends, there was equipment booth set up. So there's a picture of me refereeing like in the space between the wall and the equipment booth. And I'm just, like squeezed in and like looking out with my head. But
that's funny.
Yeah. One time I was reffing a bout with like a ton of open space, and it was on like strip 1, and the only other bout that was happening was on like strip 8. And so I'm refereeing, and suddenly I feel like it's like someone smacked me in the back of the head. And I turned around to get angry at whoever did that, because I was reffing at the time, and I was going to be like, that's distracting, don't do that. But what had happened was a blade broke on strip 8, went flying,
and flew across,
and just whacked me in the back of the head.
Oh, that's great. What a coincidence. What are the chances of that?
Yeah, like I turned around to get angry at somebody, and there's like a fencer across.
There's no one.
Sorry.
Which was so funny.
Yeah, it was totally random, and it was really, really funny. Do you have any good black card stories, either you giving them or just seeing them happen?
I've given a couple. It's always been like clear cut things, like the kids are cursing or throwing stuff or whatever. I think my funniest black card story, I was at a local tournament in Brooklyn, reffing Y10 men's foil, and this kid loses, and so 2 touches before he loses, he gets scored on, and he's like, shit. And I'm like, look, man, you can't say that. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's not okay. And this is Y10, and all these kids are turning their head like, what was that? And I'm like, you can't say that next time. Y10. I'm like, you can't say that next time is a black card. So then the 10th touch happens, and immediately this kid screams the F word just throughout the entire room. He's just like, ah. And the reason I love this story is because as I'm reaching for the black card, the dad immediately dives onto the strip, and he's like, are you crazy? No video games tonight. And it was so hard not to laugh, because I love the dad's approach, like he was immediately disciplining. And then I pull out the black card, and then the kid starts crying, of course, and the dad comes up to me and he's thanking me. He's like, thank you. You really need to learn a lesson. I appreciate you doing this. And I'm just like, this is so weird. Like I'm getting thanked for a black card.
That is pretty funny.
So yeah, that's probably my best story.
So I
No
have
video games.
I have two black card stories. One I was almost involved with as a fencer, and another one as a head referee. My story as a fencer was I was in a bout and I thought the referee was doing a really terrible job. And at 14-14, I just got hit on like the jankiest remise, and it was one leg and just very frustrating. And I just like spiked my mask, and it like went flying into the air. My friend caught it, and this ref who like, in my opinion, had been just like screwing me over the whole bout, comes over holding a red and a black card, and he says to me, "Which one do you want?" And this was when I was in college, and I said, "I want the black card, but you should give me the red card." And he's like, "Okay, give me a red card." But
That's so weird.
yeah, that was a funny situation. And then the other one was I was a head referee at a like the freshman sophomore thing in New Jersey one time.
Okay.
And I gave my little spiel in the morning, and I was like be confident, whatever, just if you can do whatever you feel is right as a referee, but the one thing is please don't black card anyone without calling me first so that I can back you up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I gave this speech. I like sat down and was like having a bagel before I went out to go check on everyone, and I get a call from someone. I want to black card someone. I was like, okay, I'll be right there. So I came over. The first pool bout, this kid in Epee loses 5-0, and I asked what happened, and she's like, so he lost 5-0, and after the touch was over, he whacked the other fencer in the side of the head with his epee.
Oh my God.
I was like, was it part of the action? Like maybe he
was it intentional?
Yeah, and she's like, no, it was on purpose. I was like, how do you know it was on purpose? And she said, he told me. And I said,
screw that kid.
I looked at him and I said, did you hit him on purpose? And he said, yes, I did.
That's the greatest.
Like, this is the most open and shut case I've ever seen. Give him a black card. And that was that. Yeah. So
that's great.
Yeah, those are my two favorite stories about that. Those are all the questions that I had for you. Is there anything else you want to say about refereeing or anything?
No, I think that's it. I mean, the main thing I would emphasize to anyone watching this is that people need to understand that we're all in this together. And fencers, coaches, and refs are all crucial parts of this sport, and none of us could survive without the other. And people always think it's like a battle. It's the fencers and the coaches versus the ref. And like when I ref, I try to create an atmosphere of friendliness where we're all in this together, you know, and the coaches know that, you know, we all shake hands, or, you know, I guess elbow bump, but and everyone's on the same page. We give mutual respect. And I feel like that's the best way to get about that. As a ref, don't come in with that boss mentality. If you're here to boss people around, then you're in the wrong profession. Reffing should not be for people who like to boss people around. Reffing
is about the fencers.
Yeah, it's exactly. You need to understand it is all about the fencers. It's your job is to make the correct call for the fencers. It's not to prove that you're a good ref. If you're there to prove you're a good ref, you're gonna fall into that video fallacy where you don't want to change your call and this and that. You're not here for yourself. We're all here for fencing, for the sport of fencing. And that's, if we're all on the same boat and we're all together, I think this sport is going to be amazing, you know? But it's when you get rivalries and, oh, I don't like that coach and I don't like this ref and this fencer has an attitude. Come on, let's just be mature. Let's be civilized. Let's just give respect and everyone's going to get along swimmingly.
Fantastic. Hisham, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this. So
thank you. It's my pleasure.